Okay.
Perfect.
All right, it's now 8 o'clock. I am going to reconvene the meeting that we commenced at the gym room at 7 o'clock. But in addition to that, we're going to go back to the beginning of the agenda, start over, and make sure we have a very clear record of everything that happened. So once again, Bob Neff, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of the
flag
United
of the
States of
United
America,
States of America,
to the
to
republic
the
for which it
republic
stands,
for which it
one nation,
stands, one
under God,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 3.
Motion of the Board of Mayor Burgesses approve the minutes of the regular meeting, March 2nd, 2021, and the public hearing, March 2nd, 2021. Each member received copies for review.
Second.
All right, any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Motion of the Board of Mayor Burgesses approve the monthly reports of March. Each member received copies for review.
Second.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so, couple things. Tonight is our first attempt at a hybrid meeting. So we started at the gym room. We had sound difficulties. So we've reconvened in the Robert Burns Hall of Burgesses. We have notified, we put this on our website. We have signs over at the event center. Everyone is welcome to rejoin the meeting. And of course, we'll also have a recording of the meeting. Just a quick update on COVID-19. Number one, as everyone knows, we have a vaccine clinic at the Armory. It's running great. It's a drive-through. We're doing 200 a day, and we're getting very, very good reviews. In addition, you can go to CVS. They're also doing about 200 a day. And thirdly, starting next week, Griffin Hospital will be doing 200 plus a day at Mount View Plaza. So there's a lot more opportunities for people to get vaccinated. If you're having difficulty, if you just can't find a way to make it happen, if you're a senior, you can call Harvey at the senior center. If you're not a senior, you can call or email, or not call, you can email Unified Command, UNIFIED Command at naugatuck-ct.gov, and we will find a way to assist you through the process. But one thing we'll be doing going forward on the agenda, I'm going to try to move the exciting and important items to the front, and people who want to watch this tape, if they want to skip all of our regular monthly business, we'll try and do the more important items at the beginning. Lastly, there will be no discussion tonight on anything to do with the Hunt investigations. They are not completed as yet. They could be done this week, next week. We're approaching the end. There will be no discussion or action tonight, and there will also be no executive session on that matter or any other matters tonight. With that background, I will now open the meeting up to public comment. So I'm gonna call 3 times. Jim K is here. If anyone is trying to get in through the chat box or otherwise, make it known and we'll find a way to let you in. So is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? Can you see the cell phone numbers, Jim?
Yes, we don't have anybody in here right now.
Okay. Second call, anyone for public comment? Last call, anyone for public comment? All right, we will now go to item 7.
So I'm go for the motion and then.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good point, Lori. So let's go to our addendum. Lori.
Motion that the Board of Mayor Burgesses amend the following motion for the appointment of members to the Indoor Sports Complex Committee.
Discussion. All those in favor? All right, so, I hereby appoint, the following members to be part of the Indoor Sports Complex Committee. Bob Neff, Dan Griesenow, Mike Bronco, Ken Stone, Roger Simos, Mike Caetano, Paul McGrath, Bob Mezzo, Lori Taft Jackson, Jolie Dinho Guerrero. Now, if there's anyone else who wants to be involved, let me know. We're looking for people from various sports who, at least initially, can be part of an assessment of our needs and our desires. So we have most of the major sports covered, but that doesn't mean that rugby or something else couldn't be included. So let's just get the word out. We'll try and do it on social media, and we want to get a good representative committee. So let me just give you a little background. Going back, the last time we discussed this, we were looking at a piece of property off New Haven Road. I'm going to call it Maddie's paving piece across from Peter Paul, the Hershey property. The piece is very difficult from a topographical standpoint and raises some challenges that would take some time and require a lot of fill to be brought in. So we're now considering other sites, but more importantly, we have an engineering firm, Lorero Engineering from Plainville, and they've come to us and said that they design, build, lots of projects, but they've done sports complexes before. So when they came here, they asked me, what is Naugatuck looking for? So I said, first of all, if you have someone that wants to make a significant investment into an indoor sports complex, we will find a way to help you. So they've done it before, and they're looking and think they could possibly find someone, and they want to have a meeting to assess, I'm going to say, community interest in what we want, and do a feasibility study to assess whether there's enough interest, and if there is, they would try to work with an investor to design and build a sports complex that would suit our needs and also be profitable and make money. There would be a taxpayer. We would have a bunch of sites we could consider. Any site. We have the Riston property. We could have some excess land at the Port of Naugatuck for the right use, possibly. At least we could talk about it. We could talk about recreation field for indoor sports complex with playing fields. So there are options out there that we could discuss if someone comes along who would be willing to make that type of investment. So at this time, I want local experts in their sports to get involved so that we can let these people know that in Naugatuck, we value sports, we support sports, we're a sports town, and we will find a way to have a lot of use for this facility. So Burgesses, public, anyone who, you know, feels they have something to contribute, let me know and we'll set this up. We'll have the company come in and discuss it, assess what we want, what we need, what we can do, and try and design something that suits our needs, that someone is willing to invest in. So I'm going to stop there and to see if anyone has a question or comment.
Pete, is there a tentative meeting for the 14th of April?
I don't know. Where did you hear that?
Jim, McGrath.
That's it. That very well could be. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think that, Nancy, do you know? Is there a meeting scheduled for that group for April 14th?
A meeting for this group? Is that what you're saying?
No. No, is it, do you know of a meeting set up for the indoor sports committee?
I do not. No, no one's told me of a meeting to schedule a
Right.
meeting for the
So
group.
when it's scheduled, everyone will be notified.
Mayor, this is Jack. I got an invitation for the 14th at 5:30 in the gem room.
Okay,
Good.
good. So who did you get it from? Just out of curiosity.
From Jim McGrath.
Okay,
Oh,
He had only sent it to the 5 original members of the committee.
okay.
And
Okay.
so we've added more members to the committee.
All right, so
tonight.
we will make sure that everyone knows
10 years ago.
of that initial meeting.
So,
Anyone want to add anything or have any thoughts? I mean, I'm under the impression that we're all in and this is a high priority and we want to go with it.
Yes.
All good? All right. Full speed ahead. All right. So let's take a look at
You
the,
want me to do number 3 for the
yeah, let's do,
finance board?
yes.
Motion at the Board of Mayor Burgesses, add a motion to the agenda to appoint a member to the finance board.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Motion 4.
Motion at the Board of Mayor Burgesses, approve the appointment of Megan Smith, 41 Mulberry Street, Naugatuck, as an alternate member of the Board of Finance, filling the unexpired term of S. James, term to expire June 1st, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion?
Great addition to the finance board, great person,
Okay.
looking forward to working with her.
She's a nurse. She works with my
Oh, I
daughter.
know, I met her. I interviewed her.
She's really good.
So I'm very happy. So Megan, okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So Megan, welcome aboard. I think what we'll do is we'll go back to the regular agenda and then we'll come back to the next several items.
So I'll go to 8.
So let's go to number 8.
Motion at Board of Mayor Burgesses, approve the appointment of Christopher Sheedy, 15 W Lane, Naugatuck, as an alternate member of the Golf Commission, filling the expired term of G Suite, term to expire June 1st, 2023.
All right, any discussion?
That's a great person, welcoming Chris to the Golf Commission.
Absolutely.
Very good golfer.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item. All right, the wastewater treatment plant. Let me just start off. I want to formally introduce Tino West, who's here with us live. And Tino is the lawyer working with us on these contracts. And he's used to be with the firm in New York City, Hawkins, Bellafield and Wood, that helped us with the first 20-year contract. And we've been working regularly with Tino for quite some time. So what I want to do tonight is, number one, when we voted to authorize me to sign the term sheet, I gave you the term sheet and some documents, and there was a lot of legalese, a lot of things in there that no one could expect you to absorb all at one night without a lot of time and effort. So we're not going to vote on anything tonight. I'm going to just start off and give an overview. Tino's going to add a few points. We're going to take questions because when this comes up for a vote, I'm going to say, I don't know if it'll be 30 days, 60 days, but when it comes up for a vote, I want everyone to be prepared to vote and to have their questions answered. And you might have to do some homework and thinking here, not on the outcome, but just you might have questions because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of issues, and it's very important. And we're very comfortable with the deal we've negotiated, but we want all the questions answered. So we're going to go through it again tonight, not in any great detail. And I'm going to give you a chance to ask Tino questions tonight. And we also, anyone can ask any questions they want going up until the vote and when it comes up. But when it comes up, we're going to have to be prepared to vote because there's timing involved and there's some financing that has to be done, certificates of participation, and it's a process, and time equals money when you're talking about wastewater treatment plants and rent, and we want to stay on schedule. So remember, the current contract expires in October of 2022. So we're talking about a 20-year deal that will go from 2022 through 2041 up to 42. Now, you may say, why are we in a rush? Well, the answer is that the plant has to be, the improvements have to be designed, constructed, and in place in 2022. And that can't happen without purchasing some new items and getting it built and ready to go for 2022. So for new Burgesses or people who don't really understand what's going on at the wastewater treatment plant, you have to remember a few things. Number one, Naugatuck is one of the oldest towns in Connecticut to have a sewer system. Because of the Whittemores and the Tuttles, we have a lot of infrastructure that goes back way before, many and most cities and areas in Connecticut. So we have an old system that we've been working on for the last 20 years, and it keeps getting better, but we still have a way to go. Let me just also say that as far as the next 20 years, we want to maintain essentially the arrangement we have now, where we have no sewer tax in Naugatuck. So Naugatuck is one of only 2 towns in Connecticut that has sanitary sewers that does not pay a separate sewer use fee or sewer tax in addition to your property taxes. And the reason for that is the arrangement that we have in place that we negotiated before, that we're trying to resurrect again, where we pay under a contract called a service agreement. We pay the operator, Veolia, to operate our wastewater treatment plant. And in turn, Veolia rents from us our incineration facility that burns sludge. And the rent that they pay us is not exactly, but it's essentially equal to what we pay them. So there's a lot of, things, between the cracks and little things here and there. But the long and the short of it is that we pay them to operate, they rent from us, and it's close to a break-even situation. We also have, debt service fees that we have to pay, and there are a lot of issues with regard to operation. So this is a public-private partnership that has income tax implications because of the public-private nature of it. So the reason we had Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood from New York City before, and the reason we have Keno now, a specialist, is that not only is it complicated, but there are income tax implications to the arrangement so that we will, make it consistent with current law. Each agreement is about this thick, and there's a lot involved. So we've already approved and executed 2 term sheets, and you all have them. And I'm just going to give you some highlights and have Tino explain a few key points, and then we'll take some questions. So the wastewater treatment plant and sewer collection system operation and maintenance agreement. So that's the agreement where we hire the operator, Veolia, to operate our wastewater treatment plant, to manage our sewer collection system, and to run the operation at the wastewater treatment plant. So this is a 20-year contract. And as you can see on page 1, they manage our assets. Remember, we own the land, we own the entire operation, all of the equipment, and they manage it for us. This contract will start, as I said, in October 2022. It's a 20-year contract, and it discusses, a lot of standard things, maintenance, repair, and it also talks about service fee. So a service fee is what we pay, what the borough pays Veolia to operate and manage our wastewater treatment plant. There's provisions in here for them to in part reimburse us for the costs involved in putting this deal together. That's called the transaction cost reimbursement. There are performance guarantees regarding plant effluent and operational guarantee. There's also an odor guarantee, which is very important to the citizens to make sure that we're doing all we can to handle the odor. ICIs, there's a lot of information and a lot of thick appendixes about the equipment that needs to be acquired and set up in order to operate according to today's standards. Now remember, there are lots of water quality issues with DEEP. There are air quality issues with EPA, and there's a lot of things that need to be managed properly in order to comply with all of the environmental laws. We have clauses on indemnification, termination. They have to actually pay us to monitor their performance. So we hire a company to monitor and, watch and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. In the past, Bob, you'll remember that was ARI Jim Binder. It's now Kleinfelder, a large company that specializes in this area. There's all types of permits and permit responsibilities and a whole host of things that Veolia has to handle to properly manage everything at the wastewater treatment plant. We talk about the industrial pre-treatment program. There are discharge permits. There are all types of permits. We also resolve an issue that we know is coming up shortly with our permits regarding arsenic which we resolved in our favor. Now, think of it like this. When you have a permit and there are certain requirements, either with water or with air, that we have to meet. If we exceed them, DEEP or EPA can come in and say, hey, you have to fix it, and if you have to build a $10 million facility to fix it, that costs, you have to do it. So in our last contract, that became an issue with air quality and mercury that was going into the air. And the borough had to buy a mercury adapter, I'll call it, that was an $8 million item. This contract is much better for the borough. Tino's going to tell you about it, but it transfers that type of responsibility from the borough to Veolia. So we know that we have an arsenic issue coming up on the wastewater side. So we've resolved that, and we've improved our overall arrangement so that if something changes an environmental level, that the burden to a much greater extent is transferred to Veolia rather than the borough. So we talk about security, guarantees, letters of credit, and things that they have to post in order to make this work and to protect the borough. Again, there's a whole book of requirements to operate the wastewater treatment plant. So that's what we call the wastewater treatment plant contract to operate the plant, for which we pay a service fee to Veolia. In other words, a fee to operate. The second agreement is called the incineration facilities lease. So there's a separate term sheet on that, and that's a separate document that's also this thing. And that document essentially is a document where we lease our incinerator and certain other parts to Veolia so that they can operate the incineration business, which brings in the revenue to the borough in the form of guaranteed rent. And I want to emphasize the word guaranteed. Guaranteed rent that we put into our budget and is a revenue stream that we rely upon in the borough. So that is a very critical thing. We need to know that we have that rent coming in every month. Again, it's the same term, a 20-year term. And also, Tino's going to talk about the change in law, we call it. So the key terms are CIL, change in law / uncontrollable circumstances. Those are the terms that can change the equation as to whether something additional has to be done to satisfy DEEP or EPA. So Tino's going to talk about that. He's also going to talk about profit sharing, because we changed the agreement in our favor from a profit sharing standpoint. And it's pretty simple in the sense that we start profit sharing at $1 over a threshold. So in the past, they had to make, what was it, $1 million before we would get $1 of profit sharing. Now we start profit sharing right at $1. So that is a good change to the contract. Again, there's transaction cost items. There's ICIs. ICIs are things we have to buy, pay for, and have in place to make this work. Odor guarantees, many of the same terms. They have to comply with air permits, with our water permits. And, there's also in here, you'll see the term additional sludge dryer. that could be important because that could generate even more revenue in the form of additional rent for the borough. So you'll see, again, a lot of the same terms in this agreement. You'll see arsenic and everything else. So that's the nuts and bolts of the deal. And when you translate it into dollars, we gave you a sheet. And I'm gonna just simplify the dollars when you look at the sheets. But the long and the short of it is that we're actually paying them less money to operate than we paid in the past. They're giving us less rent, and our debt service goes down quite a bit because the equipment we're acquiring this time is less expensive than the last time. So the debt service from the prior deal, as we know from our budget, is going away. In 2022 or 2023, we'll be starting our new debt service. The debt service will be less than what it is now. What we pay them will be less than what we're paying them now. The rent that they're giving us will be less than what they're giving us now. And when you go through the whole equation, it comes out that we're about, I'm going to just round it up, we're about $1 million a year better off. We have more protection for unforeseeable circumstances, and we have a better profit sharing formula. So that's the nuts and bolts, the simple explanation of what's going on. So, Tino, I would like you to expand a little on uncontrollable circumstances, change in law, a little bit more on profit sharing, and anything else that you want to bring out that I might have missed that is, I'm going to say, basic and they need to know as they look at this, and knowing that you're going to be available to take on any questions before we vote. And then when we get to the end, everyone will have had an adequate opportunity to ask questions or make sure they understand what's going on. So, Dino, do you want to, how are we going to do this, Jim? He speaks from there?
Yeah, if you just stand, it should focus on him.
Okay.
Yep.
So, thank you, Mayor. So the mayor, as he explained the two contracts, they're different in the way that the wastewater contracts, you're paying Veolia, the company that will be operating, operate, maintain, repair, replace, and take all those responsibilities like the mayor said on performance, on meeting permits, on indemnifying if you don't meet the permits. But you're still the owner. And as you've experienced in the past, if something, as the owner, if there's a change in law or uncontrollable circumstance at the wastewater plant, say if there's arsenic, we've protected, we've foreseen that, and we've protected the borough against arsenic change in law. But other change in laws that come around over the next 20 years, as the owner of the facility, you'd be responsible if there's a permit issue that you're going to do some type of expansion to the facility, improvement to the facility, just like you've seen in the last 20 years. And that's very typical in the wastewater contracts. That's how they're, but the good part of your wastewater contract is that unless there's a change in law or an uncontrollable circumstance, that fee that they're charging you, other than it increases by the adjustment factor, part of like the CPI, that fee, you can plan on that fee for the next 20 years. Anything breaks, they fix it. That's the beauty of those long-term asset management contracts. And but as the owner, you do take some risk if there's an uncontrollable circumstance like a flood or something that would. And typically there's insurance, and as you can imagine, other things that come into play there. But in the end, uncontrollable circumstance or a change in law, those are the only issues where over the 20 years where the borough would be potentially required to pay some type of increased cost. And that's the standard in those types of contracts. The difference is when we go to the incinerator, in this contract and lease, we really wanted to move away from that model and for the incinerators. Because it's a model you see in the wastewater plants, and you see that, I do waste heat recovery projects all around the Northeast, and I've done them around the country. And that's a model that, as the owner, you take that risk. On the incinerator contract and the lease, because they're leasing it from the borough company, and they're using in their business, they're bringing merchant waste and merchant sludge into the facility. And you're not paying them, they're paying you. We really worked this time in the agreement to shift risk onto the company, to have not the model that you have with the wastewater plant, but have a different model, because they're leasing it and they're running it as a business, and they should take more risk because it's their business. So in the last lease, when you had $8 million improvement for Mercury, that was, the borough was responsible for that, because that's how that contract, the lease was structured. And but this time, with more, I think because of more experience that we've had, having a private company operate the merchant incinerator, we said we should be shifting that risk onto the company. So in this, as the mayor said, change in law and uncontrollable circumstance. Under this new lease, if there was an $8 million improvement needed for Mercury, the company would pay for that at this time, not the borough. Up to $15 million. They're responsible to pay up to $15 million. And if it's $15 million if you hit $15 million, they can walk. They can in a sense say we can't be in this arrangement anymore. It's too. Or we can come to them and say, no, we still like you in the arrangement. We can work out how to cover some costs over 15 million. But they're responsible for the first 15 million. I think based on the experience in the last 20 years, $15 million should give the borough protection, or at least more protection we've had in the past. So that was a big shift in this this contract. Really, it really put more of that risk and burden on the company, as you would as the business that's running the facility. They're bringing in the sludge. They're marketing to get more sludge in the facility. So you should be treating it like it's their company that leased a business, not like they leased a restaurant and they're saying, I'm going to take responsibility for running this business. I just lease it from you, and you want them to have the full responsibility for running the business. I mean, if you're leasing someone a place for a restaurant and their stove burned out, they wouldn't come back to you and say, buy me a new stove. You'd say, that's your business. You buy the stove. So we worked to make it more like that type of a scenario. And we've been successful in that, and the Veolia, the company, we were able to negotiate that in the term sheet. And as we work through the agreement, that's the basic term of the deal that we'll see. And and I think they've recognized that that's what they need to do for this type of transaction, and to run the facility as a merchant facility. Another thing I think that makes this contract on the incinerator a strong and less risk averse for the borough is, as we move into the guaranteed rent and profit sharing, is also Veolia is partnered with Synagro, a leader in sludge management in the Northeast. Between Veolia and Synagro, they really are the leaders in marketing and disposing and processing of sludge all throughout New England, as well as in New York. So you really have two major players in the sludge markets, making sure your facility will be full to the capacity it is permitted for, and which we go into. That means more profit sharing and revenue for the borough. So as the mayor said, now we have a guaranteed rent. So the guaranteed rent number you'll see in your term sheet, it's $2,875,000 in July 2019 dollars. So that's the guaranteed rent you receive every year, and it's adjusted by the adjustment factor. Then you have profit sharing. There's a threshold of $9,150,000, and that's the number that they have to bring in. That they're set any revenue above that is a profit sharing component. Now that number is set based on, and we've reviewed those calculations and feel comfortable that number is a number that is set, but it's set to the fact that there will be first dollar profit sharing, and there will be profit sharing. You know, we feel comfortable that there will be profit sharing above that number, based on the market, based on having these two leading sludge marketers, Synagro and Viola in the business, bringing in sludge, what the sludge per ton costs are today. Now, I'm dealing with municipalities around the Northeast, and what some of the municipalities are paying to dispose of sludge is just being astronomical because there's no place to dispose of sludge. So in tier one, the profit sharing has 4 tiers. So tier one, the first $300,000, it's shared 50-50 between the borough and the company. So up to $300,000, you would receive $150,000, and they would receive $150,000. In tier two, $300,000 to $1 million, the borough would receive 40% of that. So that would be $400,000. From $1 million to $2 million, there would be for the first $500,000, 75% to the company, 25% to the borough, and then it flips. For the second $500,000, it goes 65 to the company and 35% to the borough. And then in tier four, if anything in excess of $2 million, it's 50-50. So it steps up, but it's a way it's incentivizing them, because if they weren't incentivized to bring in more sludge and if they weren't receiving profit share, why would they do it? But it keeps us right in the game of receiving profit share on each of the tiers all the way through. So this is something that is new on this contract, this lease as well. So it's really more of I think it works as more of a business model to maximize their expertise, and we get the benefit of it. One, in the profit sharing, and two, that they're taking risks on the uncontrollable circumstance and change the law. So, and if you can imagine, that was much of the negotiations over the summer on those 2 points. But those are big points of this whole deal. So, I think those are the main things I have to say.
And I just want to add, you know, I'm sure, Bob, you may remember this, but when we did the first deal 20 years ago, Veolia and Synagro were considering, you know, teaming up, but there was U.S. Filter. Yeah, it was U.S. Filter then, but there was a question as to whether they were too big to combine, and there could have been an antitrust argument. This time, that's been ruled out. They're allowed to compete together. So I would just say that the entity that's working for us is stronger now because we have 2 strong companies teaming up. So we're dealing with a very solid, strong entity. So that's a plus to the new arrangement. So I would say, you know, if you look at the old deal, you know, the numbers are good. We're better off on unforeseen circumstances, change the law. We've shifted some of that up to 15 million of that risk back to the company. We've improved the profit sharing, and we're dealing with a stronger entity. So we've had a committee working on this for a long time. I'll just say this, whatever projects I've worked on, this takes 5 times as much time. It's just a lot going on. And I don't think it's possible for anyone to just sit here and absorb it all at once, but that's why we talked about it before. We're going to talk about it tonight. You can think about it, ask questions, but when it comes up for a vote, we're going to have to be prepared to vote. So everyone, you can ask questions tonight, but think about it, read it. Any questions you have, we will get the answers to you. And when this comes up, we want to be ready to go. So having said that, is there anyone want to ask questions tonight?
Yeah, one question, Pete.
Jan?
Why do you do a 20-year agreement? It seems like a long time because it takes so long to get it done.
Well, Tino, you can answer
Okay,
that.
so on the wastewater side, if you're going to do an agreement, you can do shorter agreements. They do 5, 10 years, but if you want an agreement where, as I said earlier, unless it's an uncontrollable circumstance or a change of law, If something breaks, they fix it. If there's a permit issue, they indemnify you. They look for a 20-year term to provide, to be able to provide that type of, take that type of risk. Otherwise, if you take a short-term contract, like a 5 or 10-year contract, if something is to, typically, well, especially 5 years, but then if something is to break at the facility, they will fix it only up to a certain dollar cap. So you're constantly, so they maybe they'll fix anything that's less than $15,000. So you're always fighting over a number, and then they're always coming back and saying, well, you need to put more money in. If you don't make these repairs, then we can't guarantee we're going to meet permit. We can't guarantee we're going to meet applicable law. So if you really, this type of a contract gives you that full assurance that it's their responsibility to operate and meet applicable law and the performance standards, but you need to give them a 20-year term to fully take that risk, and so they feel comfortable that they're going to be there for 20 years.
So remember also, Jan, there's a 20-year timetable on the bonding and paying for the equipment that we need to make this work. And we want guaranteed rent, so we can count on the money in our budget. And they're sort of saying, well, if we're going to guarantee these things to you, we want to make sure we make enough money to make it work. So 20 years is I don't want to say standard for a deal like this, but it's not.
Well, it is when you take that full return replacement insurance. You really don't see a 10-year one. I think they wouldn't take that full. They would want you to pay for something over a certain dollar value. They wouldn't take the full risk. On a 20-year, they will, because they can look at the conditions of the facility, and they can look over the next 20 years, and they can see where they have to make repairs, where they don't, what they can get to grow another year, what they need to replace 3 years. They plan that all out over 20 years.
And that's why, Jan, I think that in my mind anyway, why the profit sharing is important, because if the deal gets too good for them, and they make a lot of money, well, we're going to share in it. So that's why, you know, on the upside, hopefully it goes in that direction, but if it does, it'll be good for us as well. So, let's just take some more questions. Carl Herb, I knew that you would have a question, so here you go.
Well, this is a highly complicated situation that you're leading us through it. 5 or 6 years ago, we had that problem with the mercury. Was that because of a change in the law?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
what
so-
if they decide to get even tougher with mercury? What does that happen?
Well, if that was to happen after this contract is entered into, if there was another mercury change in law, they would be responsible for paying for up to $15 million.
It would be?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, up to 15 minutes.
Okay. You also, Weston, alluded to this possibility of arsenic. Now, arsenic is another one of these compounds that just doesn't go away.
Right.
Well, what are we anticipating there?
Well,
You know,
what we did is we put the burden of arsenic on them, because we know now that we're going to be faced with it, because we've already received notice from DEEP that we have to deal with it. So we took care of it in these negotiations because we know about it now. When we say change in law, uncontrollable circumstances, those are things we don't know about today, but things that could happen and which would require potentially, some additional improvements.
Yeah, on the arsenic one, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead on
On
arsenic.
arsenic, we resolved was that the company will be responsible for paying 94% of capital and operating costs related to the arsenic change in law, and the borough would only be responsible for 6%.
And tell them, Carl, here's the quiz. Why are we responsible for 6%? Well, we contribute 6% of what goes in there comes from the borough, 94% from us. So they have to pay 94% of any problem relating to arsenic.
And that as a trend as we move and release, to have them really operate like they're renting it from us, leasing it from us, it's their business and they're operating it. So putting deep put those risks onto them. And there was some pushback, but in the end, they took this risk. So they understand it's operating, they have to operate like a business.
It seems like it was awfully good, contract that was negotiated, definitely benefited the borough. If we had gotten into that problem with the Mercury, and Bob enough knows, you know, that Viola was not exactly the easiest people to negotiate with either.
Carl, let me say this.
I mean,
We had a real hardball battle.
it seems like they lost on almost every front.
Well, let me tell you what happened. We did not follow the law, and we could not comply with the Mercury requirements because the borough did not spend the money to buy the Mercury adapter. Veolia stopped paying the rent. So they stopped giving us, at that time, $4 million a year. Now, let me tell you, when we don't get $4 million a year, it hurts. So we negotiated a deal that worked for both sides and adjusted the equation. So I think the point is that if that happens this time, we're in a much better situation than we were the last time. The last time, the borough was responsible to make the change, but no one wanted to spend $8 million, and we got into a pretty good war with them. And I will say this about Veolia, that during the war, one thing I learned is that they're good at what they do, which makes me feel comfortable with them as a company, because when the EPA came here, they were very good at answering questions and solving problems. They are a large world-class company and they're solid. So if they weren't, having been in a fight with them, but I respect them and learned a lot about them from that war. And in the end, I feel better about them having gone through that. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense, and I just think that contract, the change in law was the borough's responsibility. So they're gonna hold you to that, because that was the deal.
Yeah.
And this contract, up to a certain point, was their responsibility, and I will hold them to that, and they'll acknowledge that. But they were able to, how they structured their rent, they structured the profit sharing, what they know they're bringing the sludge. I'm assuming as a business, they're comfortable taking that risk because of the business deal they put together, but it's a better deal for us.
And that's where we generate the arsenic when we burn the sludge, right?
That's why they're responsible. Well,
It also comes in our wastewater.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sounds like a good job.
What's unique is that 20 years ago, when we did this originally, we were new to this whole setup.
Mhm.
And we had very good people involved to negotiate that type of contract at that time. And when it was all said and done 20 years ago, it was a good contract at that time.
Yeah.
As time goes on, we got educated over the 20-year period on different things that could possibly happen, such as rules and regulations, EPA changing as time goes on. Now, we got smarter. We have exceptional people involved in doing the new contract that will benefit us better. I think Veolia over the last few years probably could have made more money if they marketed it properly, but I don't think they did. And Veolia is not stupid, because they know they have a good gig here, quite honestly, and that's why they're part of the process. So I think that the people we have involved now saw over the 20-year period the benefits that we could receive for the next 20 years that would be more beneficial to the borough. So I think we're all in the right direction.
If you hadn't had the $8 million mercury change in law, which is unfortunate, but it probably wouldn't have prompted the change of deal here, because that, when I kept hearing about that, we were like, we need to figure out a way to change the deal for the next one, just not have that happen again. And I think Veolia, my sense is they wanted to have it so that way, they knew that was contentious, and that's why they don't want to be,
But this deal, in my opinion, is win-win. And when I say that, there's pluses for them and there's pluses for us. So any good deal will work. You know, you can have the best deal in the world on paper, but if it doesn't work, you have nothing. So we want them to be successful and we want to share in it. And that's how it's set up.
One more thing, I'd like to thank you for your work in this matter. I want to thank you for your 20 years that you dedicated to the borough. Things like this can just blow your budget right out of the water. Just like that $4 million. I want to thank you too, Mr. Mayor, for that.
It's a
It's the last
team.
time I'll ever thank.
It's a team effort, so, it's all positive.
But it took 20 years of devotion to the town to do it.
And
And I appreciate that, Bob.
And we got educated over the 20-year period on what we can do better for the next 20 years.
Yeah, the first 20 years was a good contract. It was a
It
good
did.
contract.
When we did it 20 years ago, it was a great contract.
You learned.
You know, it's like anything else.
Right.
You know, it looks like, you know, they probably lost money here, but helped them, I think, with their other facilities, because some of their other facilities come here. So
Yeah.
that, you know, it helps them in that sense. You know, the sludge market, I mean, if the prices go way up, we'll share in the profit. So, we're in a very fluid world. So, I don't think anyone can debate that. So, all right, do we have any further questions of Tino West?
I think we're cool.
All right, so
Thank you.
we're gonna go to the next one, Tino. You're free to leave. But if anyone has a question, I'll get it to you.
Yeah.
And you can answer by email or otherwise.
Sure.
Mayor, one question, a timeline for when you would like to get this vote done by?
Well, so tell me about the financing, the call you had. 2 months?
Yes, I mean, they're looking to have the financing by early summer, so.
I would say
Good to know.
we're gonna have to vote before summer.
Good to know.
So, you can approve the contract and approve the financing.
Okay.
The information we got tonight, on top of the documents we have to read, between now and May, we should have more than enough information to make a decision.
And if you have a question,
Yeah.
we'll get it to Tino and he'll answer it.
I can I can email, I can call me, I can come to another meeting, like a separate meeting if you want, whatever you need.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Thank you
Tino.
very much. Good night.
Thank you.
All right,
I'm going to 5. Back, we have to-
On your agenda.
Okay.
you're going to where?
Number 5 on the agenda to go to number 6, because it's.
Okay, 5 on the addendum.
Right,
Okay, yep. Yep.
Motion for the Mayor Burgesses, amend the following motion for random crack ceiling.
So, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 6.
6.
Well,
Motion,
let me stop for a second. All of these motions are the same as before, except Allison added the wording, contract shall commence upon vendor completing all borough requirements and the purchase order is received by vendor. I don't know if it's necessary or not, but that's the way we do things, but it's probably better that it's in there. So everything is the same, except that language is added. So let's go to the actual motion.
motion for the Mayor Burgesses, amend the motion to approve the bid and authorize Mayor Test to execute all contracts and related documents for the random crack ceiling modified AC crack seal with fiber compound installed for specification 25,000 pounds, 2,500 pounds per day to the following vendors as recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart as a threat.
Second.
Okay, so I'm gonna just throw it out there. Jim Stewart, are you there?
I am here. You guys hear me?
No.
No?
You're too loud. Too loud.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, so we went to bid for crack sealing as we do every year or every few years. We spend about $50,000 a year crack sealing the roads in Naugatuck. In this case, we received two bids that were equal and both low. So I'm recommending that we award to both the contractors.
All right, so you're totally good, no issues?
No
Good.
issues.
All right, any questions of Jim?
Is the price different than last year, Jim?
No, it's approximately the same. It is adjusted. The contract allows for an adjustment by the asphalt, actual asphalt emulsion pricing. So depending on what oil pricing is, it will fluctuate slightly. So this contract is a 2-year contract with a optional extension to a 3rd year.
Is there a percentage increase or is it automatic? Is there a high?
What happens is you look at the amount of asphalt in the product, and it inflates by that percentage. So if there's 5% of asphalt and that asphalt emulsion goes up by 50%, which it's not going to, then you would see a 2.5% increase in the product. We don't pay any extra for labor or materials other than the asphalt. Emulsion, I should say. If that makes sense. So the actual adjustment is pretty small, even if there's large increases in the asphalt pricing.
All right, any further questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to Board of Mayor Burgesses amend the following motion for Burgesses Lori.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So ordered.
Motion that Board of Mayor Burgesses amend the motion to approve the bid and authorize Mayor Hess to execute all contracts related documents for quick set slurry and micro surfacing, timeline micro surfacing type 2 to Seal Coating Inc. 825 Granite Street, Braintree, Mass. In the amount of $281.98 per pound as recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart. Contract shall commence upon vendor completing all borough requirements and purchase orders received by vendor.
Second.
All right, Jim.
Again, this is the product we've used in the past and the same company we've used successfully in the past. It is the low bid. We did receive 2 bids for this item from different contractors. And this is the low bid, and it's about the same as we were paying in previous years.
Jim, what the heck costs $281 a pound?
Excuse me, that's not correct. It's per ton.
Oh, okay.
So it should be modified. Thank you for catching that.
But what is it? Is that heavy slurry you're putting into that latex like?
That's the thin pavement that we've put down on various roads,
The micro paving.
the micro paving.
And we are at the next time.
Yeah, well, let's just, all right, so let's amend the word,
I'll second that.
we have a second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Oh, you're opposed to the amendment?
It's getting
All right,
like,
Nancy, please note that Senior Burgess Carl Herb has objected to the amendment from the word town to town. I want that reflected clearly in the minutes.
He's a little overweight.
All right, having said that, I'm calling for a vote on the amended motion. All those in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Forward.
I was still thinking about it.
Motion of Board of Mayor Burgesses amend the following motion for pass the hour polymer asphalt surface sealer, chip seal, complete in place chip seal using 3/8 trap rock.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item 10.
Motion of the Board of Mayor Burgesses amend the motion to approve the bid and authorize Mayor Hess to execute all contracts and related documents for pass the hour polymer asphalt surface sealer, chip seal, complete in place chip seal using 3/8 trap rock to Seymour Ceiling Services, 147 North Plains Industrial Road, Wallingford, Connecticut, in the amount of 2.43 SY, pricing based on Southbury bid number 2020-010, minimum 1 day or minimum of 25,000 SY. That's recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart. Contract shall commence upon vendor completing all borough requirements and the purchase order is received by vendor.
Second.
Okay, Jim.
This is a more modern type of chip sealing that we all know and most people did not like in the past. What we're proposing to use is what they call pass oil, which allows the stones to stick better, and so there's less peeling up of the stones. I'd like to do a road this year. Either this spring or the coming fiscal year as a trial basis. As you can see, the price for chip sealing is what, $2.43 a square yard versus micro paving, which is closer to about $5 or $6 a square yard versus paving, which is about $15 to $20 a square yard. So chip sealing is much less expensive. I'd like to try some, see how it goes and work from there. We did go to bid for both the next two items and received bids, two bids. One was from Gorman Group, which was less expensive, but they were not proposing the pass oil. And I don't think that's a good idea because those materials, the stones will flake off much more than with the modern pass oil. We received for this item a bid from Seymour Seal Coating for $2.70 a square yard. I did speak to him about that, and what he suggested that he would hold the Southbury bid at $2.43 a square yard if we give him a minimum of 1 day's worth of work, which is what we were going to do anyway. So that's where that recommendation come. We work off Southbury's bid, which is significantly less expensive.
Jim, I have a question for you. It's Rocky. When you say you're going to try it to see how it performs, has it been tried anywhere else? Do we know how it's working other places?
Yes, multiple towns are using it in this area. Middlebury's used it, Oxford's using it, Southbury's using it, and they're all having good luck.
Okay, thank you.
And the roads do have to be in better condition than obviously for paving. They have to be in better condition than the micro surfacing generally. But we do have a lot of roads in that area, and we have to try something, to keep our costs down. If you look at this pricing, with what we have to spend, we could chip seal a lot of roads for the money we have.
So Jim, in Middlebury, you know, at the end of Rubber Avenue Extension going right towards Middlebury, is that one area where they use this method?
That is an area where they used it. They actually put this down and then they put a fog seal. They sealed over the top of it to even lock it in more. We might want to try that depending on the roads we pick. Apparently the road was in poor condition, so they actually apparently put some asphalt on top of the road, and then put the chip seal over it. I would propose as a starting place to try to pick a road and just put the chip seal down on a road that's just starting to you know, delaminate and crack enough where it could benefit, and then move on from there if we like the product. I know Bob Neth will let me know immediately if he doesn't like it.
So Jim, if this works, we can actually pave more roads next year using this method. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest more of it. Yes.
Okay.
And then Jim, one more question. What's the average life of chip sealing versus something else that you would do?
Oh, I would say you'd want to re-chip seal a road every 5 to 7 years, and that would keep it in good condition.
And that's something that we could do?
Well, we could, with the money we have, if you took the $1 million a year, you could chip seal every road in town every 4 or 5 years. Not that you would want to.
Right.
I think you could get more life out of it. There's also some roads you can't chip seal. You wouldn't want to chip seal downtown roads. They tend to build up more every time you do it. You get a little bit more, a little thicker, a little thicker, a little thicker. So they're great, and we don't have a lot of these roads. They're great for roads in the country that aren't curbed, where you can just put down the material. But you could certainly put 1 or 2 courses down on roads without an issue.
And it's not something that would affect, because it's a little bit of a rougher road. It wouldn't affect bicycles, motorcycles, anything like that?
What it does do is if you use the cheaper oil and somewhat for the first few days, that's why it needs to be signed. The loose stones, motorcycles need to be really careful when they come to that area. That's why one reason I wouldn't want to use the other product, the state product, because you lose stones over a week and you can't sweep it up for a while. So it's pretty treacherous. But I don't think it's so rough that you have to worry about bicycles. Maybe skateboards might be a problem, less comfortable, but I'd still like to try it in certain roads and see how it works out and move from there.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion, the Board of Mayor Burgesses to amend the following motion for pass CR polymer asphalt surface sealer chip seal, complete in-place chip seal using 1/4 trap rock.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion, the Board of Mayor Burgesses amend the motion to approve the bid and authorize mayor has to execute all contracts and related documents for pass CR polymer asphalt surface sealer chip seal, complete in-place chip seal using 1/4 trap rock for seamer sealing 147 Plains Road Industrial Park, Wallingford, in the amount of $2.13 a square yard, pricing based on Southbury bid number 2020-010, March 25, 2020. Minimum 1 full day or minimum of 25,000 square yards is recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart. Contract shall commence upon vendor completing all further requirements, and the purchase order is received by vendor.
Okay, same discussion?
Yes, very, very much the same discussion. Our bid was $227 per square yard. And that's reduced to $213 using the Southbury's bid number. This is for a smaller stone that could be used if desired on less traveled roads.
All right, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion of the Board of Mayor and Burgesses to amend the following motion. Waste paint management agreement.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 14.
Motion of the Board of Mayor and Burgesses authorize mayor has to enter into a waste paint management agreement with Paint Care Connecticut LLC, 901 New York Avenue, 300W, Washington, DC, to participate in the Connecticut Architectural Paint Recovery Program for the collection of waste paint at the Naugatuck Transfer Station, Recycling Facility, and landfill drop-off site as recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart. Contract shall commence upon vendor completing all borough requirements and the purchase orders received by vendor.
Jim?
So what this is, and we're all familiar with paint cares. When you buy a can of paint, they charge you a nominal fee that covers the recycling of your paint, and you can bring back cans of paint to various locations in the state where they take the paint from you and recycle it. What I'm proposing is that the transfer station become one of those sites. It costs the borough nothing. Our responsibility is pretty simple. We would take people's paint, we would put it in a bin, and when those bins are filled, we would call Paint Cares, and they would come and pick them up. We're basically responsible to make sure that we don't put anything but oil-based and latex-based paints in there, that we only take paint in its original containers. And at that point, our responsibility is over. We get a lot of people that come to the dump, want to get rid of paint, and we have to divert them to other locations, including Sherwin-Williams, who has a limit of 5 gallons of paint per visit. A lot of people are moving out of town or cleaning out their houses in the spring, have obviously many more than 5 gallons of paint. And they just want to get rid of it. So obviously they could dump it. They end up leaving it at the transfer station anyway. And we end up having to store it until household hazardous waste days. And what I've thought is it doesn't make any sense. We can do this with our existing manpower at no cost and provide additional service to the borough residents.
All right, any questions or discussion?
This is Rocky. I just want to make sure that in some way, shape, or form, we get word of this out to people, to maybe help stop some of the dumping where it shouldn't be dumped, to let them know the service is available.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as we get the contract signed, we have to get the delivery of the containers and get the personnel trained by Paint Cares, and then we'll let everyone know.
Good, thank you.
All right,
7:15. Motion, Board Mayor.
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
All right, all those in favor of item 14?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 15.
Motion of the Board of Mayor and Burgesses amend the following motion for the fireworks display.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 16, here we go.
Motion of the Board of Mayor and Burgesses to extend the contract for fireworks display to Central Maine, Highway 165 Maple Street, Farmingdale, Maine, in the amount of $15,000 for Friday, July 2nd, 2021, with the rain date of Saturday, July 3rd, 2021, as recommended by Assistant Public Works Manager Rivera.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Sandra.
Good evening.
Bring us motion.
There's an echo. I'm requesting that we extend the contract to the Connecticut, I'm sorry, Central Maine Pyrotechnical for another year. They had the contract last year, and as most of us know, there was an issue with the fireworks. It wasn't determined. The Connecticut State Fire Marshal did not determine that it was negligence on their part. It was just a faulty mortar that caused it. They are eager to redeem themselves and put on a show for Naugatuck. I had a conversation with Anthony and the owner of the business. When the incident did happen, they were very gracious. They told us that obviously we weren't paying for the fireworks. They covered overtime costs, additional overtime costs due to the issues. So we're just looking to extend their contract and give them the opportunity to put off the fireworks event this year.
I would just say they were very good to deal with in that situation, and they definitely, in my mind, deserve another shot. So totally good with this. What about, we haven't solidified the date yet, right, Sandra?
We had talked about it, and in the motion, it's showing the 2nd. Every year we've held it on the Friday or whatever day that the holiday, before the holiday. We typically like to, unless the board wants to make changes, July 2nd is a Friday. We tend to do it on the Friday. The guys don't get, the overtime is limited, and it allows people to enjoy other events over the weekend if they are in town for the 4th of July. But the rain date will be on Saturday, July 3rd.
So we're going to vote on this, approve it, depending on COVID and what happens, we'll make a decision to pull the trigger as we get closer.
Yeah, this the company Connecticut, Central Maine is very good to deal with. They understand that there's COVID. They understand that there's cancellations. If we decide not to go through with it, they don't even require us to give them a deposit prior to the show or anything of that nature. So they've made it very easy for us and very flexible.
All right, any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right,
Motion for the Board of Mayor Burgesses authorized Mayor Pete Hess to execute a license agreement between the Borough of Naugatuck and Catholic Cemetery Association of the Archdiocese of Hartford for the borough's continued use of Continental Field for baseball games and related sporting events as recommended by Borough Attorney Ned Patrick.
Second.
all right, Ned, are you there?
Ed's got it on mute.
He's there, he's muted. Ned, unmute.
You're muted.
Unmute there. Sorry, there I am. Trying not to say much. So this is not as dazzling as the fireworks display motion, but it is a license through the Catholic Cemetery Association for Cotton Hollow Field. It's a continuation of our arrangement with them that we pay nothing for the license agreement. It's a 3-year agreement. We do ensure, and they require in the license agreement, that we have appropriate liability insurance. And it is for the baseball and other related sporting and entertainment activities. That's the uses that are provided for in the license. So it's a 3-year plan. Actually, the Cemetery Association, this license had expired in January, and they just picked up on it, I think about a month ago, that this license had expired. So it runs from January 1, 2021 through December 31, 2024. And I do have and I've already forwarded to them the proof of insurance, which has been forwarded to me by Allison Bruce. So it's ready to go, subject to approval by the board and the signature by the mayor.
So we want to play ball there, so
Yes.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
It's like nobody's getting buried at home plate, huh?
I tried to resist any comments in that direction.
All right. Item 17.
Motion that the Board of Mayor Burgesses expend the remaining balance of $27,300 on the Silver, Petroselli, and Associates contract approved by the Board of Mayor Burgesses at the June 26, 2019 meeting to complete the architectural art associated with the photovoltaic solar project at City Hall Middle School. Construction contract awarded to WC McBride Electrical Contractors LLC at the March 2nd, 2021 meeting as recommended by Architects Planning Building Committee and the Narcotic Board of Education.
Second.
All right, so just by background here, we have an agreement. They did the work, the design is complete, and we're paying them. I don't even know if this motion is necessary, but there's a contract, they did the work, we paid them, and the remaining funds that we have allocated are set aside for their services during the construction period. So I think we've already done it, but Jim McGrath feels that we should do it again, so here we are. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion for Mayor Burgesses approve the post-insurance continuing disclosure compliance procedures in accordance with the SEC amendments to Rule 1582-12 as recommended by Controller Allison Bruce.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. We have Allison. We have Barry Bernabe, our bond advisor, who's with us also to discuss this. I see you there now, Barry, right? Yeah, you took down your glamour shot and you're going live now. I see. Okay. So however you guys want to start off, Allison or Barry, tell us what we have going on here.
So go ahead, Barry.
Okay, so whenever the borough issues bonds, Allison, the controller, spends a lot of time preparing what's called an official statement for investors. You know, part of the bonding process that requires going forward, even years where the borough does not issue new bonds or new debt, that the borough has to provide ongoing, continuing disclosure information to investors. So what they like to see is formal policies and procedures that the borough adopts, which is what this is. This is a procedure to adopt these policies and practices to provide this ongoing financial information to investors. So they like to see it institutionalized so that it transcends. If Allison retires and moves to Florida, that the next person that comes along, that there's information here on what the borough needs to do going forward to meet these requirements. So that's the gist of these disclosure procedures that we want to get passed tonight, adopted tonight.
So just a question, Barry. We're approving the procedures. Do we have them in writing somewhere, or Allison, do you have them, or where are they?
I gave a copy to Nancy to distribute to
Okay,
the Burgesses.
does everyone have it in their packet?
The good news about this is the bulk of the information required that needs to be disclosed is automatically included in the borough's annual financial report. So there are a few of them that are not included, but working together with the town, both myself as financial advisor and the borough's bond counsel, we'll make sure that few bits that are not included in the annual audit report are also disclosed. But like I said, about 98% of all the information is already compiled by Allison and her team in that annual audit report.
So we're just codifying a procedure that we're going to follow to make sure we're compliant with law.
Yes, exactly. The investors, the attorneys, everybody likes to see that this codified, that the borough acknowledges it and adopts it. And then we could say going forward, there's formal policies that are adopted by the borough. That's exactly it. Yes.
All right, so we want to comply with the law. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So let's go to
19.
19.
Motion of the Board of Mayor and Burgesses refer to the joint boards of Mayor and Burgesses and the Finance Board, the purchase of vehicles through the fleet fund for the year 2022 as recommended by Patrolman Allison first.
Need a second.
Second.
Charlie Meringue on the second. From the horn section. All right, so Allison, are you gonna explain this?
Yes. So as we discussed previously, when we approved, or the Burgess approved the fleet fund to be adopted, we've been depositing revenues into the fleet fund. And we're at a point right now where DPW, Fire and Police Department have presented their request for vehicle purchases for fiscal year 2022. And we will require a referral to the joint board to review the fund balance within the fleet fund and the request for purchase of vehicles within that fund for fiscal year 2022. It's rather important that we meet the this coming next week with the normal joint board meeting time, because there's some production line issues with vehicles this year and a shortage of computer chips. And we want to get ahead of the game with other municipalities and solidify this purchase sooner than later. So the funds will be available for the purchases, and we're hoping to do it before this fiscal year ends.
Okay, all we're doing tonight is referring it to the joint boards. And then, do we have a joint boards meeting scheduled for next week?
We don't have one this morning.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So Allison, make sure, you know, I thought we were off next Monday night, so we're referring it to a meeting. Doesn't sound like the meeting's been set up yet, but just keep that in mind as far as your timetable.
So Nancy, we're solidifying it for next Tuesday, a week from
Yeah.
today, correct?
With the mayor to see if that works for us.
Is Nancy there?
Well, let's say this. I have nothing else to
You are unmuted.
do.
I'm sorry,
She's
I'm sorry.
there. She's there.
I was muted by the host, so I'm sorry I couldn't reply. I received an email from Emily today that a joint boards meeting would be needed next Tuesday, and I was just needing confirmation from Dan that it was going to be Tuesday and not on Monday's budget meetings.
So Nancy, he has already requested not to piggyback on Monday.
So we're doing it next Tuesday, right?
Correct, Tuesday.
Right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next Tuesday. Item 20.
Discussion of possible action regarding gas abatement ordinance for the fire, police, CERT, and safety patrol volunteers as proposed by Burgess, Rocky Vitale.
All right, Rocky, here you go.
Yes, sir. Just to give you a little history, back in December, AJ Burgess came to me and asked me if there was something we could do for the people that volunteer their time to the borough for emergency services. And I wholeheartedly agreed that we should do something for them because they perform an important function. They save us on overtime. They're around for MVAs, for fires, for various events, for natural disasters. And it allows the fire department and the police department to take care of their main core of duties instead of just blocking the road or directing traffic. So I thought it was a great idea. And I started working on ordinance in order to do that. I think you all have a draft copy. And of course, all of it is up for review and discussion and where we want this to end up landing. But basically it would cover the Naugatuck Fire Police, the CERT team and the safety patrol. And would give them a bit of a tax abatement once a year as long as they met certain requirements. And they would have to submit paperwork, every year to their team leaders in order to be able to do this. Basically would be looked at by the assessor. The assessor would determine if that's appropriate for them and then send the information off to the tax collector. Part of the eligibility for the tax abatement, they'd have to be a member of their team for at least a year. They'd have to respond to 50% of the calls or meetings in order to be eligible for this. And it would be their leaders who would keep track of this, which they already do, and then be able to send the information off. The tax relief they would get, as I proposed, is a 10% abatement up to a limit of $1,000. There's a state statute that doesn't allow any more than a $1,000 tax abatement for something like this. And basically would be any real or personal property that could apply for the abatement. They can only apply once, so they couldn't apply for two different things, or if they volunteered in two different groups. And that's pretty much it. They would end up filing a report to us. We would be the ones who are given the final approval before April 10th of each year. And then it would go through the process and get applied to the prior years. There's certain things that need to be done, a form to they have to come up with a form to fill out. And also, I don't know if we have certificates of tax abatement, if that's available. I'm assuming it is somewhere in the tax office. And then there's also at the end a way to take this to an appeals if for some reason they're looking for tax relief and it isn't given to them. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I think you got the CERT and Safety Patrol totals, the members that are on there, what their assessments are, and then what 10% would be of that assessment. So with the CERT and Safety Patrol, at this point it would be about $8,500 total for all members. None of them hit the $1,000 limit. I didn't receive the fire police. I don't know, Allison, did you get anything from Jim for the fire police?
I don't recall getting anything.
Yeah, we don't have that information yet. To see how much that would cost. So I guess the main thing right now is I want to see if people think this is something that we want to do. If we want to use that 10%, if we want to change any of the requirements for them to get this tax abatement. So it's up for discussion.
So, I'm just gonna throw it out. Let's just get some comments from everyone. I'll just, Charlie, I'm gonna start with you.
Let's have one question, Rocky. There's some people that share a household and they're both kind of showing on here as getting the same amount credited towards them as an individual, or is it per household?
It would be per household. And that's one thing I looked at, and this did go by council, but I want to talk to them about that again because I think the language says it would only be one per address or vehicle. I just want to make sure we do cover that.
Mhm.
All right, anyone, let's just, Fran, you wanna say anything?
No, just, I don't want to reiterate what Rocky said, but based on this past year, you have some figures for CERT/Safety Patrol. And it would average about $501.52 per member in tax abatement, which that's, and to put it in, say, cost per hour, last year, the team put in 1,387 hours. So it would be like you would pay them $6.15 an hour. That they put in.
Yeah,
And that's the time they're actually out doing something. It doesn't include, planning and so forth.
So, just Rocky, if we get a general consensus that we want to keep going with this, I would ask you to, run it by legal opinion, start with Tim Fitzpatrick. Let's do the numbers. Let's get some numbers so we can see what it looks like. And we'll discuss it, and Nancy will put it on our next meeting's agenda. Hopefully we'll have the numbers, and then if we like it, we want to go forward, we'll have a public hearing for the ordinance and move forward. So with that background, is there anyone that wants to ask Rocky a question, make a statement? You like it, you don't, whatever. Bob?
Rocky,
What?
in your research, how many other municipalities have done something similar to this nature? And are we gonna replicate their model, number one? And number two, in those other communities, does it just pertain to emergency services? Or are there other, are there other, people that volunteer their services, such as, I'm gonna say, for example,
I'm sorry, I'm losing you.
finance board, planning, zoning, etc., who participate, do they also reap any type of benefit like that in any other community?
I didn't hear everything that you said, but yes, I did look at 3 other communities, Shelton, I can't remember what the other 2 were, to see what kind of ordinances they had, because I'm not smart enough to come up with this off the top of my head. But I did just massage theirs to meet our needs.
Rocky, you know, without the motorcycle in the background, in those other communities, is it just the emergency field aspect of the volunteers?
Yes.
They're getting the benefit?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Just one more, Mayor. For obvious reasons, I wouldn't be voting on it, but if it did come to not, or, you know, to a vote rather. But I think we should do a survey of, you know, especially a lot of the small towns that have full volunteer forces. And just offhand, I know for a fact that most volunteer departments now are not volunteer to the extent that they were, say, 20, 30 years ago because of the lack of volunteers. For example, there's some towns that have volunteer ambulances, and the people that go out on the calls get $30, $35 a call. Volunteer firefighters also get a stipend for every call. And I don't want to say a figure because I don't know exactly what it is, but I know a lot, if not all, of the volunteer services do get that.
So Rocky, when you look at this and discuss it with legal and put the numbers together, you're gonna have to be clear as to who qualifies and, you know, make the distinction between, I'm gonna say the fire police versus someone who is on a planning commission or something like that. We want it very clear as to what we're talking about.
Well, I think, by the way, it was worded.
It's not, I didn't read it. I just
Yeah,
read
it does explain, you know, for emergency services.
Yeah.
It's not for, one of the other commissions say.
Yeah, the ordinance does say it's specific to the Naugatuck Fire Police, CERT, and the Safety Patrol. One other thing we want to look at too is there's members of these groups that don't live in Naugatuck. So we want to decide if we want to do something to help them in the town that they live in. Just another thought.
An abatement in the towns they live in.
Yeah, we'll give them 100% of it.
For example, I think Stratford EMS, I think now has a tax abatement for the volunteers, and they have some reciprocal agreements with some towns around them. But I'll get more information on that.
Yeah, so far with our team, we have members of Middlebury and Prospect.
Okay, so Nancy, put this again on the agenda for the next meeting. Rocky's gonna do some more homework. We'll discuss it at the next meeting. We're gonna move forward with it. We will have a legal ordinance, public hearing, go through the ordinance process.
Yeah, and again, I just wanted to thank AJ for bringing this forward. I think it's just a great way to honor some of our volunteers.
All right.
That's it.
Good.
Okay, item 21.
Motion for Board of Mayor Burgess Burgesses authorized mayor has to execute a lease agreement between the Borough of Naugatuck and Robert Matus for property located on 150 Meadow Street, Naugatuck, for the sole use of Region 21 Naugatuck District Probate Court.
Second.
All right, so, I don't know if there's anyone, is there anyone who wasn't here last night to hear the discussion? So this is a lease, proposed lease that's in your packet to move the probate court from the town hall to 150 Meadow Street, a downtown location. The reason for it is there's a space needs crunch in the town hall, and the best location, or first of all, the best entity to leave is the probate court for two reasons. First reason being that other towns pay 43% of the cost, so we only pay 57%. And secondly, because the location we're moving to had a fire, the insurance company for the owner is paying for the setup, which is unusual. You know, usually when you rent a place, there are costs involved in setting up. So the rent here is about half of what the other locations were requesting, and there's no setup costs for the office. There are moving expenses, some IT expenses, things like that, that are listed on the sheet we had at the finance board. We're not gonna sign a lease until the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but we need to move forward on a couple of fronts. Number one, are we gonna put this in the budget? Number two, are we really gonna do it? And number three, and I guess another reason for them to go is building, the assessor's office, the tax collectors work together as a team, and they should be close together. So if we're gonna do it, this is the most logical way to do it, and the best deal by far that we've located after, I would say, a search of more than a year. So that's where we are. So I'm gonna take questions, discussion, whatever anyone wants to say. So anyone want to ask a question, make a comment, or say anything?
Mayor, this is Rocky.
Oh, Rocky, go ahead.
I just want to mention one thing. When we were looking at the budget, I believe there was a line item in there for fire sprinklers. I would assume that this is insured as a commercial building, and they probably were reimbursed for any code issues, which would have included the fire sprinklers. So I just want to make sure when we go to finance again, to the budget, that we review that to make sure.
Yeah, so Allison, are you there?
Yes, I was just looking it up in the budget as he was speaking.
Okay, so let's double check Rocky's point and make sure that we have it covered.
Yeah, so this is under a commercial policy for them. There would be code coverage for the fire sprinklers or any electrical work, things like that. Thank you.
All right, any questions or discussion?
This is for 5 years and what?
5 and 5, Mayor. 5 and 5.
Okay, yeah, you're there, okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
5-year lease for the 5-year option.
What's
And it
the
also
annual
includes, if I may, Mayor, it also includes 5 dedicated parking spaces in the back of the building off Meadow Street. And it also includes additional parking on property that's owned by the landlord located on Hillside Avenue if necessary. So if they're hosting a gathering or a conference, they can use other property in common with other parking that the landlord owns, probably about, 250, 200 feet down the street on Hillside there, the bottom.
Oh, question.
What's the square footage of what we're leasing here versus what we're giving up here? What do we get on Meadow Street versus what we're leasing here?
I'm not sure what the current square feet. I can tell you the square footage of the current space, that was Jim McGrath who handled that, but the new space, including the garage, which they're going to use as the vault, is about 2,200 square feet, roughly, in that range. Maybe more than that. I'm sorry, 3,200 square feet.
It's gotta be bigger than what they have now.
Way bigger, much bigger. So the longer term plan here is that there might be, it looks like legislatively, there may be some further consolidation of the probate court system. And if that occurs, Naugatuck it seems likely to survive that. But if it does, according to the staff that I spoke to, there will be they have enough room to be able to absorb more of the towns if necessary in this location. They couldn't do it where they are now.
All right, any further questions or discussion? All right, let's have a vote on item 21. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain because it's probably personal time.
We have an abstention. So are you suggesting that I should abstain because Bob Matus is my friend?
Not a good friend, he is to me though. You evaluate that yourself.
I feel like I have no conflict, so I'm gonna vote yes.
Whatever the good is the borough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be a win.
Come on, Carl, come on.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right,
Motion, the Board of Mayor Burgesses authorize Controller Allison Bruce to refund the following tax refunds approved by tax collector James Baggett.
all right, is that a second, Bob? It was a weak second.
It was really weak. Yeah, my mask is getting.
All right,
I would check and see if my name was there.
all right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, public comment.
We don't have anybody in.
All right, well, I'm gonna still call for it.
You certainly did.
Any public comment?
Andreas, you have anything?
Yeah, Andreas.
Andreas, this is your big moment.
Nothing to say, maybe next meeting.
All right, any public comment twice? Any public comment? Hearing none. Mayor and Burgess comments. So at this time, I'm going to allow Burgess Jackie Oliveira to be the first one tonight to make a comment. So Jack, I'm going to turn it over to you.
What if we don't want to hear what he has to say?
Well,
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Burgesses. Sorry, I cannot be there at the moment. I am under mandatory quarantine from traveling, but hope to see you guys soon. I just need to make a comment that I will be resigning from the board effective on the 16th of this month. It is a personal decision. I have received an offer to attend a PhD program at the University of South Carolina. So I just want to take the opportunity while I still have time before I start a family to kind of further myself a little bit more. So I thank everyone for their trust in me in the last couple years, and I will make sure to see each and every one of you before I go. So thank you for everyone. Thank you everyone, and I appreciate the years of service and the trust that constituents have put in me.
Good for you.
Congratulations. Good for you.
Congratulations, Jack.
Thanks, Jack, and good luck. And just when I got you all broken in, you're leaving me. I can't believe it. I don't want you to go. But good luck. You're at the age where I think it's a good move. Nice state, not as good as Connecticut or Naugatuck, but pretty nice. So good luck to you and stay in touch.
Thank you all.
All right. So I see everyone on the screen or live, so I'm looking for who's not paying attention. Like, oh, Mike.
Mike, pay attention.
Any of us are paying attention.
No, just joking. But hey, Mike, anything you want to say or add or comment on?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thanks. We don't have, I'm not talking about doing it tonight, but I think I'd like to continue the conversation that we had about revising the tax collector position. I don't know if that's executive session material or if we can do it outright, but if we can put it on the next agenda, I think I'd like to do that if we can.
Okay, did you hear? It was a little muffled, like it was hard to hear what you
You'd like
said.
to revisit the,
What?
you'd like to revisit what was brought up a while ago, revising the tax collector's position.
I mean, we could, okay, well, we could revisit it. Don't forget, we have an elected official, so we would, it's something we could talk about.
If we turn it.
Well, it is, but, we'll discuss it further.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's see, Carl Herb.
Jack, Osarka, thank you for all your work that you've done for us. I haven't got a lot to say. Relocating the Dunkin' Donuts, that went on to the planning board, passed that on with positive recommendations to zoning. It's gonna be interesting to see what the Department of Transportation does with the inlets and outlets there and all that. I have no idea what they're gonna do. Everybody's gonna wait to see how the traffic report comes back. The only thing else I got to say is tomorrow you get 20% of the check to pay at the hub goes to the high school for the senior class. I think everybody should order something there. At the hub.
Where?
Hot oil pizzas.
I heard you at the hub.
Hot oil pizza.
Yeah. You can make a lot of extra money.
All right, Carl, thank you.
Thank you.
Rocky.
Yes, sir. Just one thing. Myself and Detective McGarvey took a ride around town to take a look at camera locations in order to fight blight and dumping and litter. And we're going to come up with, I'm going to this week bring recommendations to the litter committee on where they should go. They're just not going to be used just for those things, but the police department can also tap into them whenever they need to further their investigations. So it was thanks to the detective around, and it was very, very fruitful.
All right, thanks.
Also, Jack.
Somebody wants to say something. Hold on, Jim.
Rocky,
Wow.
can you give me a list of the locations? We were supposed to do this together so that I could make the recommendations for the type of camera you're looking for based on the pole or the area. Because there's going to be several factors that come into whether we can put a camera there or not.
Correct. And that's what we looked at, where there's electricity. Is it underground? Is it above ground? Are there poles
Okay.
available? all that stuff, but I should have something together this week.
All right, thank you.
All right. And lastly, Jack, I'm glad you're leaving. I couldn't hack you, but I'm only kidding. It was a pleasure sitting next to you when we had meetings. I just wish that I could have a dark beard like yours, but it doesn't work. So good luck. I mean, I really mean it. I wish when I was your age, I did the same thing and went and got more schooling. It would have been very helpful in further years. So good luck. I hope it all works out well. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Rocky. Jan?
I'm all set.
Okay. Charlie?
Well, first of all, Jack, congratulations. Still there, but just getting accepted to a doctoral program is quite an honor. It's a credit to our town that you're accepted to such a program. You serve us well. We thank you for everything you've done. I know we've all, another point, I know we've all received invites from Union City Little League. That is the 17th of April, 10 o'clock. They have their opening ceremony. It'd be really nice to see as many Burgesses there as we can. It's a return to normalcy, guys. It's another way to celebrate how things are turning around, how Naugatuck's making its comeback. It'd be really good to have everyone there to support the cause if you can.
Charlie, I'm assuming it's not going to be the same day as J. Foley.
No, they do the next day.
The next day, okay, all right.
Jack is back.
Jack is back.
Hey, Jack, I don't know if you missed it or not. Congratulations, but I really think what you're doing is a credit to town, just being accepted to the program. It's outstanding seeing one of our own get accepted to the doctoral program. That level of scholarship is something to really admire. So excellent job. Good luck. Very best to you, sir.
Okay, Grant.
Well, once again, I also want to congratulate Jack. It's been a pleasure working with you, walking with you. It's quite an honor to, be sitting and have one of our Burgesses be accepted in a program like that. I just want to applaud you on it. I also want to applaud all the Burgesses that this past year has been a tough year, but we're here, we're getting through it, and onward and upward.
Thank you, Bob.
Jack, my friend, good luck. I think you'll be great down in South Carolina. It's been a pleasure working with you over the few years, and be safe.
Lori.
Jack, same here. It was great working with you the last few years. Thanks for your service and best of luck down south. And we're gonna miss you on the board. So I'm sure you'll be in touch. And we'll see you on opening day, Charlie, in New City.
All right, again, Jack, good luck, congratulations. As a result of you leaving, the procedure to fill the vacancy is that the Republican Town Committee will make a recommendation to this board, and we will make a decision and fill the vacancy, obviously, from the same party. They've made a request today that we do it as soon as possible because of the upcoming budget and the votes. So that makes sense. So we will have a special meeting after April 16th. I don't know the date. We'll pick a date that works, but we will have a replacement will be voted on shortly after April 16th, and we'll try and find some other items to put on the agenda. Jim and Lee are looking at me like I'm half crazy here, but we'll find a way to make it work. Let me ask this, do you think we should have that special meeting and maybe the next Burgess meeting here, or what?
Which special
What are
meeting?
the one after April 16th?
If it's just name Jack's replacement.
Let's just, Jim, what do you think for our next meeting? Any thoughts?
If you do it in here, this seems to work much better than the gym room. It's a smaller, more acoustically set room. I know Charlie can attest to that from a music standpoint. Cinder block and wide open space just lends to echo. And we did truly enjoy the bassist upstairs. But we do have some bandwidth issues that have to be addressed over there, and that won't be quick. That will take a number of weeks to address, so I'd say here or online, one or the other.
All right, so we'll do our special meeting here. And I think the only, or the major limitation to this room is size if we get a crowd during COVID. So when we get to the May meeting, before that, we'll have to
We'll talk.
revisit and talk and think about it.
Did they float any names to you?
They did.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are the names to replace Bob, not to replace Jack.
I mean, I'll,
If they want to replace me, that's
well,
fine.
let's say this, I don't know if they told me in confidence or not,
Okay.
so I won't say it
I got
publicly, but I'll tell anyone who wants to know as soon as the meeting concludes. You know, Jack, is this confidential or we're supposed to know, or I don't know?
I mean, it's definitely the name. So if you just want to get off the call and just say it in front of the room, I have no problem with that. I think that's fine.
All right, so the name that I was asked today is,
After the call.
After
Get off the call. Once you go
after
off
the call.
After the call.
Okay,
After we adjourn.
all right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn at 10:06.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.